So, are the Wild really about to potentially make this interesting? Holy crap, boys. Granted, to be fair, this would be a very Minnesota Wild-esque thing to happen. Like, what? Well, for those of you who don't know, the Minnesota Wild win by a score of 3-1 against Arizona in Arizona. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, the Minnesota Wild, last time they played Arizona, lost 6-0 at home, by the way. So are the Minnesota Wild really about to mess around and find out? For those of you who don't know, the Minnesota Wild are now 3 points out of a wild card spot. How? I don't even know. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Considering how the beginning of the season went, and just how down in the dumps, I guess, the Wild were going into, the John Hines coaching change and stuff like that. But 4 in a row coming out of the All-Star break, kind of right around the All-Star break and all that stuff. And we're right back to where we need to be. So, who do we have next? We host Buffalo on Saturday. A team that's also arguably even worse in the dumps than we are. And again, are we really about to mess around and find out? I'm not saying we are. I'm not saying we aren't. But wow. I mean, these last 4 games have just been absolutely crazy for the Wild. Including wins against the Penguins, the Coyotes, who, by the way, did I mention the last 2 times we played them at Mullet Arena, we choked away multi-goal leads? Yeah, this has just been absolutely crazy over these last few games. And hey, I'll tell you what, I'm all here for it. I'm not necessarily saying we're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying we aren't going to make the playoffs. But, I mean, these guys have finally found a new motor, a new vision, just something to believe in here. Again, if we make it, we make it. If we don't, we don't. But at the very least, the Wild are actually putting a very fun product on the ice, which as a Minnesota Wild fan, again, at the beginning of this year, wow. I mean, the beginning of this year couldn't have gone any worse for the Wild fans. For the Wild just in general. I mean, between Evason getting fired, Hines getting hired, the old coach, heightened awareness and stuff like that, just, going off on a tangent and just absolutely owning the league, and then coming back to earth, and then now coming back up again. Because the Wild have a very favorable schedule coming up. Granted, there's one game that really kind of scares me, and that's Monday, President's Day, against the Vancouver Canucks, which, again, if you would have asked me even last year if the Canucks would have been a scary team, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. But let's put it this way, the Canucks are the best team in the West right now. I mean, there's some teams going on in the West that just absolutely have me confuzzled. I mean, the Kings are one of them. Edmonton is another one in the opposite direction. And hey, I mean, if the Wild can mess around and find out, this is just, it would be a very Minnesota Wild thing to just barely somehow sneak into the playoffs and potentially make some serious noise. But it'd also be like the Wild to barely miss out on the playoffs and totally screw up any sort of hope for a good draft position. But hey, I mean, I'll tell you what though, I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm seeing from the Wild. Especially because there was a stat I found earlier today where the Minnesota Wild rookies, just in general, are like producing at about half a point per game, which is the highest in the league. So guys like Rossi, Faber are contributing night in, night out, which again brings me to the future of the Wild. I mean, those two guys alone are massive pieces moving forward here. I mean, hey, again, like I say, I'm not saying we're going to make the playoffs. I'm not even saying we're going to be a playoff contender. But from what I am seeing, from what I have witnessed, this team looks different than even a month ago. This team actually looks like a potential fiery, passionate, just, one of those teams that can make some noise. Granted, I've also watched enough Minnesota Wild hockey to know that this could completely derail, or we could mess around and make the playoffs. I mean, again, it's just absolutely crazy from what I've been seeing. From the beginning of this year to, Christmas, to Thanksgiving, to even now. Like, just, wow. Hey, boys, let's keep this up. I mean, fuck it. What's preventing us from making a deep run? What's preventing us from potentially making a big statement here? Why not? I know a lot of Wild fans might say, oh, we really need to capitalize on getting a high draft pick. Screw it. At this point, I'm just going to ride this wave until it either crashes completely or we somehow manage to sneak our way into the playoffs and potentially make some noise. I mean, I'm at that point where I'm like, screw it. Let's go, boys. I mean, I'm never going to root against my teams here. No matter how easy or how hard it is, you never want to root against your teams. And as a guy who's watched plenty of, sports and, seen plenty of his fair share of, just bad luck, good luck, just dumb luck, or whatever you want to say here. I mean, it is what it is. But let's screw it. Let's go out there and totally screw things up. Let's go out there and say, screw it. Let's make some serious noise. Why not? Who's preventing us from? I mean, we still got like almost 30 games to go. We have a lot of, lower class, quote unquote, teams to go. Why not? I mean, again, like I say, our next game is at home against Buffalo, who has been struggling mightily this year, by the way. So, screw it. Let's go out there and make some noise, boys. Let's freaking do this. Let's go Wild. Let's just, why not? Why not us? So, whoo! Boy, I'll tell you what, this is the best I felt about this team this entire year. Granted, will this come back to bite me in the keister come, the end of March? Maybe. Probably. But hey, screw it. Let's ride this momentum. Let's ride this wave. As a Minnesota sports fan, this is all I know is ups and downs, valleys and hills. Screw it. Screw it. Let's just go out there and totally mess things up. Let's go Wild. So, until we meet again, this is Jacob. Have a good day.